Hey, EV Daryl back with you from South Florida. We're going to do tonight a rental car recap. Tonight is Monday, November 13th, and I returned my car today. We had it for a week. The Tesla Model 3 long range, dual motor. So a couple of things I wanted to talk over, both good and bad. I wanted to recap. I wanted to be fair. We drove the car over 500 miles this week. We put it through its paces. We did a lot. But I want to talk about what the good things that I liked about it and the bad things that I liked about it. And then we're going to just do a total recap on it. And I got a couple of quick videos to show you some inside things that kind of concern me a little bit on the car. So from the good point, the car, it's a nice car. I like the looks of the Model 3. It's a four-door sedan. It was a dual motor, very, I don't know how to say it. It was, I don't want to jump right into the bad side of it, but it was uncomfortable to drive. It sat extremely low to the ground, and I had some trouble getting in and out of it. I may have said this in an earlier video, excuse me, but my seat, when I was in the comfortable position, the most comfortable, the door, and you'll see it in this video, my seat is behind the B-pillar to get out. It's just a horrible positioning of the B-pillar. You should be in every car, most cars I've driven, it is literally when I'm in a comfortable position and reclined, the B-pillar where your seat belt attaches is literally behind your shoulder, should be behind your shoulder. Should not be in front where you have to literally turn around and lean forward almost to get out of the car. But back quickly, sorry, to the good things. The charging network, this has already been run in the ground. The Tesla charging network is the best by far. I did a quick short earlier in the week on the Tesla Charging 101. You get out of the car, you grab the nozzle from Tesla, which has a little button on the top. You push it, and it'll open your port automatically. You don't even touch it. You plug it in, you're done. Now, this week, it ran those charges to the Hertz Rent-A-Center, and then that's where I rented the car from. And then at the end of the week, like today, when I gave it back, they were like, okay, here's your total, here's your charges, blah, blah, blah. And then those were charged to me from what I charged in fuel over the week. So before we go on, that brings up another bad point. I drove over 500 miles, and we have what would be considered the perfect storm in a bad way, a really bad way. Here at my condo complex, we have no charging abilities. There is no place to charge. We were so busy this week that I didn't have a lot of time to go down to the harbor and sit and charge for free. There's a couple of chargers down there that I could have charged for free. We just didn't have a lot of time. Each day we were taking day trips, 100 miles this day, 160 miles this day, 100 miles that day. I mean, that's why this week we put just over 500 miles on the car. So every single charge was supercharging miles, and it was, I want to use the term expensive, but I'm going to add an adjective, massively expensive to supercharge all the time. And we might as well get right into it. With the Tesla supercharging, and I was only averaging about 3.6 miles per kilowatt, I think. I mean, it wasn't efficient. I didn't think. we drove the 500 miles with the fees plus whatever taxes there were included. It was $77.53 this week I spent in fuel costs. Massive, massive charges. Now, to give you the flip-flop of that, if we had a charger here at the condo, and say I drove 500 miles with my Bolt, which has been averaging about, even on the highway, I'm averaging close to 4 miles per kilowatt. Now, I threw in the 12 cents a kilowatt because that's what I pay at home. It would have been $15 for the week to drive. So not having a level 2 charger at the condo complex put us in a bind, but we already knew that from when we had the Bolt here a couple months ago. If you have free time and you can go down to the harbor and either drop it off or ride bikes or spend 3 or 4 hours at the harbor, you can get an extra 120 miles. But we didn't have that chance this week. I mean, we were running a lot. So by not having that opportunity, everything I had to do was supercharging. And as I have learned, and I call it like it is. I'm sorry, Tesla guys. It was massively expensive to use the charger. To give you an example, if we would have driven my wife's van 500 miles this week, and she has a Honda Odyssey minivan, we get 28 on the highway, we get 21 around town, so we would have averaged about 25 miles per gallon. If we average 25 miles per gallon, and tonight on the way home I saw it was $3.05 a gallon for gas, it would have only cost me $61 for fuel all week to go the same 500 miles. So literally, supercharging was more expensive than using my wife's minivan. And it's big. The minivan's twice the size of that sedan. So it was kind of frustrating. I knew each time we charged, I saw this charge was $13.50, and then the next, we get ready for the next day, it was $15.50, and then it was $14.50, and then it was $16, and then last night I had to get charged up to turn it back in, and it was like $18.53 or something like that last night. So it was massively expensive to charge, and it was not as efficient as what my Bolt is. And that leads me, this segue into, I think part of the reason is it was a dual motor, which I think it's less efficient. Then since the battery compound is lithium ion, they recommend not charging it to 100%. You don't want to ruin the battery. Okay, it's a long range, which means it has a bigger battery, but they only want you to charge it to 80%. So when I would charge it to 80%, it would show 255 miles. Okay, so 255 miles at 80%, I mean, granted, you could charge it to 100% and get over 300 miles if you had to do one long range, but our day trips weren't that bad. So really your mileage is 255 because they don't want you to charge it to 100% unless you have to. Now they make an LFP battery, which is lithium iron phosphate, I think it's called, correct me if I'm wrong. Then that battery is okay to be charged to 100%. It doesn't mess up the battery. You can charge it every night. Tesla recommends at least once or twice a week to charge it to 100%. Now it's a smaller battery, but it goes 274 miles on a charge. So personally, these smaller battery, single motor, more efficient car, for me would be a much better car to buy. Now, I will just break all we could bust right to the end of this. The Model 3, I did not enjoy. A lot of road noise. Wasn't comfortable to drive. Wasn't very comfortable. I think my Chevy Bolt is more comfortable to drive. We drove a lot more miles, as you can see, look back from a couple months ago when we did our Florida road trip. I mean, I hated the slow charging. We had a lot of issues with that. But the comfort, my wife and I we drove 2,850, whatever it was, 2,845 miles, I think. We never had issues with comfort. The road noise was nice and quiet. Now, I will add on to this. It's possible that with this rental car, the road noise, they may have already be on their second set of tires. Now, as a rental car, you get people sometimes who drive a car like they stole it and they don't treat it with respect, and they really destroy cars fast. This car, when we got in it, the radio had been set with the bass all the way up. You could just tell that somebody who drove it last, and the music was fairly loud. I had to reset, from the treble to the bass and get everything set back to like what normal people listen to. With that, I want to show you, I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say, and I'll come back up and we'll do a finish up, but I want you to see these two videos. I took two short videos to kind of give you the B-pillar seating of the car looks, and then the head getting in the car, literally the door frame, you have to try to really duck underneath. It's thicker, mainly because you have a complete glass roof. So they have to make the two frames that come from the A pillar, which are in the front, and come up all the way back to the B pillar, and then all the way back to the C pillar in the back. Those have to be bigger to support because you have no roof. It's all glass. So by doing that, not only is it thicker, it's thicker this way, like shorter. And I think you'll see it in the videos that it just seems shorter to the ground. And not only is it uncomfortable in the car, but then when you try to move, you got to get out, you got to duck to get out and duck to get in. As this week we had people in the car, and we had several times that would be like, you just shouldn't have to do that. Okay. So check out these two videos, and then I'll come back with you and we'll get it finished up. Stand by.
You probably can't hear me. The wind is blowing about 30 miles an hour today. So here's a Model 3. I want to show you, when you rent a Model 3, if you can hear me, this is, they give you a Tesla key. And if you swipe that right here, it makes the car come alive. Otherwise, it should be sleeping. So let me show you a couple things, and I'm sorry if it's shaking. When you sit in this car, you're sitting literally like, here's my feet touching the ground, hanging outside. Okay? I'm not impressed with that at all. I feel like I'm sitting on the ground, and I've said that before. It's even lower than what my Prius sat. Then look at this loop in here. This lip is got to be 4 or 5 inches tall from here up to here. You literally have to climb up and out of the car. So what I've been doing, as most elderly people have to do, is I've been sitting down in the car and then lifting my feet into the car and turning around. And another odd thing, like to get comfortable where I'm sitting, there's my door, there's the door frame. Like the seat is behind the door frame. I mean, I'm only 6'2". I'm not 7'7" here. This isn't Shaquille O'Neal. So there's the door frame. You got to lean up, well, because you got to twist your legs to get out anyway. Then you got to lean up just to get out of the car. Then, as my wife has explained as well, watch this, because this sticks way down. Up here, this A pillar that's extended all the way from here all the way up through here. That's a big, thick A pillar, and they have, I get it, they have to have that because this is an entire glass roof all the way back. Okay, looking out through the roof. It's an entire glass roof, and to strengthen that, you need this massive A pillar continuation back to the B pillar, and then it continues all the way back to the C pillar in the back. I get it. The problem is, to do that, this thing is huge, and every time you go to get out, yep, we're ducking and trying to squeeze in and out. And I'm not being a jerk about this. I'm just being honest. Everybody wants honest reviews. Well, let's be honest here, okay? It's not the best setup, especially for, I think I'm 6'2", maybe 230. And I don't think I'm that huge that you should have that situation. Okay? So as I climb back in and swivel around, this is a better angle of that distance. Look how narrow that is, that distance right there. That A-pillar continuation, and here it is. Well, there's the seat. For the average person, there's the seat, which is sitting behind the B-pillar. I've never seen that. The B-pillar should be farther set back, is all I'm saying. So, all right, stand by, guys. Also, one more thing that I finally got control of after a week. This car uses energy while you sleep. I would wake up every day and my battery would be down like 3% minimum, sometimes 4%. So it was crazy, and I didn't know what was using it. So I had to research it, get on all of the channels, and find out that there is everything from, well, what do they call it? Let's see if we can just see it in here. On, well, there's a service mode down here, which I found, no, safety mode. There is, besides Sentry mode, which is up here, Sentry mode, okay, keeps an eye out every time somebody comes by the car, keys the car, it tapes them with the 8 cameras. Great thing, right? It also uses energy, all right? So then down here farther, I found out you have the cab overheat protection. This has been on all week. I turned it off yesterday. So when you turn that on, it gives you a choice. If the cabin gets over 90 degrees, it'll turn on the air conditioning automatically, or 95, or 100 degrees. That's what it does. I found that last night. So what I tell you this to tell you that. When I stopped last night, I was at 86% charge when I got back. It's at 86 this morning. I finally figured out all week long I was turning stuff off, like turning Sentry mode off, turning other things. I was turning the air off at night when we left. I didn't know what was causing all of this phantom energy drain day after day after day. So finally yesterday I found this cabin overheat mode, and this is where it was. It was in, and actually it was set at 90 degrees. Okay. So as it sits at the rental car dealership, it won't let the cabin get over 90 degrees. The air conditioning will fire up and keep it cool inside. So I turned it off last night, and that helped a ton. Now I set it at 100 degrees. So once it gets at 100 inside, then the air will kick on. But what I also wanted to tell you is this glass is lovely up here, but you also get heat coming through. It's tinted. It is tinted, but you do get heat coming through. So with that, stand by again.
Okay, I'm back. I don't know what you thought of those. Hopefully that explained it a little bit. And I didn't talk about it earlier, but for the bad point, I would wake up every day and like 3% of my battery was gone. And according to the Tesla web pages, it was like it's okay for the car to burn 1% of energy per day on its own if you don't use it. So, which first of all, I don't agree with that. It shouldn't just use a 1% for no reason. Now, I realize Sentry mode is on to film people trying to mess with your car or something like that. So it videotapes while your car is asleep. It wakes up and videotapes something if somebody comes around, which is a great thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wasn't getting the 1% per day. If I had it charged to 80% and I woke up in the morning and I'm like, oh, it's at 79%. That's still going to get us our 200-mile trip or 150-mile trip or 100, whatever. But when you have it charged to 80% and you get up in the morning, you're like, it's at 76%. What? We got home last night after I charged it. It was at 80%. Now it's at 76 or 77%. It used 3%. So it took me all week to figure that out. Like Sentry mode, I turned off anything that was filming, I turned off. And then finally, the last night, I found that cabin overheat mode. And to give you an example, I think my car, when I picked it up last Monday, it hadn't been driven for 2 days. I saw on the last charge was on Saturday that I think the previous renter charged it on Saturday, charged it up, and then returned it. So it had sat for a couple of days. I think they charged it on a Saturday morning, and then it sat at the rental place for 2 days until I picked it up on Monday. When I picked it up on Monday, she told me, okay, the car was returned at 89, you have 89% energy. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I'll leave with 89, I'll bring it back with 89 next week. One of the rental car people went out with me to give me tips on the car and show me the car. When we went out, the car was at 71% battery. Now, I'm not saying somebody wasn't driving the car for the whole weekend, but I'm like, and I told the guy, I go, she wrote on the rental sheet that it was 89% and it's at 71. He just kind of shook his head like, ugh. And there's only 2 people that work at the rental place. He's like, okay, I'll update the computer down to 71%. Okay, well, first of all, I don't think it's possible for the car to use 18% energy in 2 days, unless, and it was sitting out in the sun, and in South Florida, it's been in the 90s the last few days or week or whatever, unless the air conditioning ran the whole time. If the air conditioning ran to keep the cabin overheating, anytime it got to 90 degrees, the air was going to kick on and cool down the cabin just to keep it cool. That plus Sentry mode, and it was sitting out by the street. So if that in fact was a case and Sentry mode was on when I got it, there might have been hundreds of videos of people driving by because it would activate the cameras or coming down a highway. So it could have been a numerous things. I think either one of the people took it home for the weekend or something. I mean, I just can't believe it could have sat there for 2 days and used 18% energy, just doing nothing. What a loss. So, but from the flip-flop to the good side, autopilot is phenomenal. I really liked it. We used it a lot. Is it perfect? Nope. I personally, I don't think we're going to see self-driving cars, even if you got the what is it now, $13,000 or something to get FSD, full self-driving. There's issues you can't fix without the human brain. The human brain, no matter what computers think they're doing, I mean, and to give you an example of that, autopilot was, like I said, I used it a lot, and it really relieves the stress on driving. Don't get me wrong. It was really nice. If we ran up to Sarasota or if we ran down to Marco Island, I used it, set the cruise at 70, 73, 74, whatever. Double tap the toggle on the column, boom, and it will keep, and it's not one of them that does one of these either. It knows where the lane is and it keeps you in the lane. It's great, really good. The problem comes in, what we noticed in other scenarios is when you get to an exit ramp where there's no marking over here, it didn't want to take the exit, but it kind of drifted over, and then when the new one came in, it tried to correct. You know what I mean? Like there's you come up to an exit ramp. If I was in the far right lane, if I was in the center lane, there's 3 lanes down here on I-75. If I was in the center lane, it kept perfect all the time. It kept the speed. It never slowed down. It was perfect. But if you were in that lane, and once that exit ramp opened up, and there was no white line, no fog line, you could see it on the screen. It would kind of vary, like, or is the fog line, and it would drift, not a lot. It would drift a little bit, and then once you got past that intersection and the fog line was there, it would correct. So that was very minor. The one issue that my wife and I agree on 100%, several times, a couple of times in Marco, and I think once or twice in Sarasota, you're driving on a 3-lane highway, say, we were We were in Marco. It was a 2-lane highway, maybe a 3-lane highway. And we were going 45 mile an hour. And I had it set at, I think, 7 car lengths in front. I didn't like it. When I first got it, it was set at 2. That scares me. It would allow you to stay within 2 cars, but literally you could be going 120 and it would try to stay 2 car lengths of the car in front of you. That was too close. So I backed it all the way to 7, which is the farthest distance you can keep from distance pacing on a car like cruise control. It'll keep you that far away. And that's not very far. I mean, the traffic was fair to Midland. It wasn't bumper to bumper traffic. And we were traveling in Marco. We were traveling 45 mile an hour. And the traffic ahead of me was way ahead of me. There wasn't even anybody on the road. But there was a car that turned. It was coming at us from the other direction. And they turned in front of us. They weren't even close to us. They turned. It wasn't like they cut me off. It wasn't like they cut in front of us. They turned in front of us. And immediately the Model 3 nosedived. And I mean, it jerked both of us right away. And the first thing my wife said is, if somebody would have been behind us directly, they'd have hit us. There's no way they could have stopped. None. No way at all. I would bet if we did research, a bunch of Tesla accidents that are involved, Tesla is involved, that are rear-ended are for that reason. Exactly. There was no way, and it was a hard nosedive. Then later, a few miles more down the road, same thing happened. And none of these were life-threatening, cut in front of me. They were way out, farther than 7 car lengths in front, where they turned to just cut across the intersection. And both times it nosedived, and it was, it literally slammed on the brakes and nosedived. Both times, no car was behind us. And then again in Sarasota, it did the exact same thing. So even though I really liked Autopilot and it handled really, really well, I don't know if reducing the distance pacing to, like, say, 6 cars or 5 cars would have been better. But the cars, all of them that turned in front of us, were much farther than 7 car lengths ahead that turned. Well, they were way up there ahead of, not, I don't want to say 5 miles ahead, but they were turning, and it was not like they were trying to cut us off. There should have been no way that it should have slammed on the brakes like that. So even though I really liked, for the most part, and it kind of relieved your stress, it drives really well. Those were just the instances that I didn't really like. The phantom energy use, like I said, it took me all week to learn to shut off Sentry mode, and we live in a nice area, shut off the cabin overheat mode, to shut off all these things. And it took me till the last night to figure out, okay, I didn't burn any energy overnight. Now I finally got all these things that are waking the car up in the middle of the night and using energy, finally got them all shut off. So, but I kind of think that recaps a little bit of everything. So I know I've taken a long time doing this recap, and I'm sorry, but I wanted to get the total truth of us driving a car, and we drove it a lot this week. Just to get it out there. Now, that has no bearing on a Model Y. Even the lady at the rental car business said every time we get a Model Y in, it gets rented right away. A lot. Like it's the big turnover. The Model 3, not so much. So, I mean, it gets used because it's the only Tesla. When somebody comes in and wants a Tesla and that's the only one they have, that's what gets rented. So, with that, if you like the review, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. I know, again, we just have a really small channel here, but I'm trying to do a lot of electric vehicle information. So we got a couple of exciting things coming up later. It has nothing to do with electric cars, but you'll see. We'll get to those in the next couple of days. All right. With that, everybody, be safe out there. Take care, and we'll get back with you. Thank you.